What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Custom Journeys podcast. My name is Andrew Baines. My goal is to introduce you all to amazing STEM professionals and help you have a successful STEM career. For those of you who may be tech startup founders, this is a unique episode that I think you guys will be really interested in. I got a chance to attend the H-Town Roundup, which is essentially a week-long event here in Houston, Texas, where we spotlight all the innovation and technology that's happening in Houston, Texas. Biowell is an accelerator program that provides an array of support to biotechnology companies to help them be successful. While at H-Town Roundup, I got a chance to talk to Paul Palmer, Carlos Estrada, and Jonathan Mercado about each of their roles within the company and what Biowell is doing to help more startup companies be successful in Houston and then beyond. Make sure you like the video, share it with a friend, and subscribe to the channel. Now, enjoy the video. The last week of February is H-Town Roundup, Rodeo, something like that. So we have a really unique opportunity to interview a lot of exciting people from the tech community and ecosystem here in Houston. Today, we're going to be interviewing a team of individuals from Biowell. They have a tech accelerator program here in the city of Houston. They're going to talk about what they do, how you can possibly get into the program if you're interested, and just kind of learn more about some of the interesting things they're working on. So excited to be interviewing first Paul Palmer.
You got it.
All right, cool. What's your role at Biowell?
I'm the executive director at Biowell.
Okay,
so I started in November.
Okay. Well, welcome to the team, Paul.
Thanks, sir.
So I know you were telling me earlier that you just recently retired in July of last year, right?
I did. I retired last year in July from E&Y after more than 30 years working with a lot of the big companies around the country.
Okay. So quick question, shortest retirement ever. What made you go from retiring, enjoying your tequila, your margaritas on the beach down in, Cabo, to now being back into the thick of things?
Maybe that was the problem. When I called my wife and I was watching the news, drinking beer on the couch at 10 o'clock in the morning, she said something has to change.
Okay.
So, no, I've always liked dealing with startups. I've worked with Rice Alliance for probably the better part of 10 years. My early part of my career when I was in Kansas City, I helped with startup companies. I've started a couple of companies myself. Unfortunately, as I'm sure you've seen, they didn't all work out. My wife's got 3 companies. I've done some venture investing. I love watching and seeing that small community kind of grow, and they come out with some interesting stuff. I've done a bunch of stuff at TMCI. I've had friends go through TMCI, and when you see the kind of innovation that these companies are doing, you start realizing how little you really know about almost everything on this planet. And it kind of draws you in and makes you want to do something a little bit different. I've dealt with big companies who've made lots of money and were fairly insular, and then you go and you look at a startup at TMCI that's helping people who have cancer, maybe women, deal with spinal taps, and they come up with an interesting new device that is kind of a wow moment. You're like, I need to be part of this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's infectious. I think once you get bit by that bug, you can't really, shake it. And so I'm not surprised at all. But I kind of hit on it a little bit. Biowell is a startup accelerator program. Kind of tell us more about Biowell and what you guys are doing.
So Biowell is an accelerator for industrial biology companies. So one of our co-founders, Veronica Wu, had been playing in this space a little bit, and one of the issues that she had seen is there's a lot of activity in industrial biology. And when I say industrial biology, it's an area that we're using biologics to create, call it like things like palm oil, drop-in chemicals, things that you would already use, maybe pet chem or some other things to create rubbers and plastics and so forth. And we're looking at how can you use biologic organisms, oils, and things along the lines of that are naturally existent in our environment to create some of these things so that they're biodegradable, so that we're not having to touch things like building, growing palm tree forests to make Nutella. So we're looking for things, and we're looking for companies that we can help go from lab size into very large scale commercial organizations, because in order for these kind of chemicals to be successful and these kind of companies to be successful, they have to be scaled very, very large, because these aren't, again, we're looking at drop-in chemicals, so the market already exists, and we know how big that market is, and these companies have to be prepared to go from test tube to millions of gallons, if not more.
Nice. No, I appreciate the explanation. When you talk about going from like lab or benchtop to
Yep.
scale industry solution, like what does that timeline typically look like for startups, or what do you guys kind of expect that timeline may be like?
Well, so our accelerators, the teams that come into our accelerators will probably take 6 to 9 months.
Yeah.
So it'll be a little bit different than your normal what you think of from a tech or a coding and whatnot, where maybe they're every couple of months or 3 months. We'll have a much larger period. Science and biology isn't always easy, so they're going to have to do test runs and change it up. So we'll have cohorts, and we're thinking in Houston we'll have somewhere between 5 and 10 per cohort, and it'll take 6 to 9 months for them to really go through that entire process.
Okay, gotcha. I appreciate the insight. Man, it seems like you guys are like perfectly positioned. I mean, I'm biased being from Houston. I know you're from Kansas City. Are you a Chiefs fan, by the way?
Absolutely. When I grew up, they were terrible. I got to go and watch them in the freezing rain or freezing cold snow with a hot chocolate and watch them lose over and over again. And now I get to sit in a nice climate-controlled living room and watch Mahomes say, you've disrespected me yet again. Watch this.
Gotcha. No. So I mean, that's great. You've been able to experience the highlights, after so many years of tragic defeat. But so no, I think you guys are like. I'm biased, obviously, I'm a native Houstonian, but I think you guys are really positioned nicely, given that you talk about like biology and industry. We have such a big we're the energy capital.
Yep.
We also have a really big medical center, probably the largest in the world. Then also you have like these academic institutions, Rice University, University of Houston, and then others, Texas Southern, and then Prairie View and A&M right down the street as well.
Absolutely.
So like, where do most of the companies come from? Are they kind of like spin-outs from these academic institutions? Or are they spin-outs from industry partners like Oxy, Aramco, others? Or like, where are they coming from?
Well, so I'll actually address your first question too. I've been in Houston since '95 for the most part, and my wife is a native Houstonian. So now I'm a native Houstonian. So that's part of what attracted Veronica, and that's one of the things that I have always thought so highly about Houston. Houston is kind of the city that gets it done, right?
Yeah.
They grind, they lean in, they get things done, they make things happen. I've always viewed Houston as a large hard tech place. It's not, again, we're not as much coding. We're hard tech. We actually create solutions that help and change the world, and you said it in the oil and gas sector. The thing that's interesting about what we do is that Houston is the largest source for chemical engineers, for petroleum engineers, for biotech people. There are more of those people here in Houston than there are anywhere else. So, and obviously Houston and Texas as a whole is a very business-friendly environment. So, and then you layer on all the institutions and so forth. So I think that we have a lot of resources here in the Houston area. A lot of the companies that we're seeing through our venture partner, Bight, are coming from a bit of the coasts, right? So you do have a little bit of a bent towards Southern California, and you've got a bent towards Boston. So a lot of what we're dealing with are those two kind of coasts, but at the end of the day, that's where the science is happening. But for them, as we talked about earlier, to commercialize and to get to scale, they're not going to be able to do that on the coast. If you can imagine trying to put some of these facilities up in the middle of downtown Manhattan, it's probably not going to happen, and it's going to cost them a lot of money, time, effort, and they even talk about it in terms of kind of the middle of the country, where that's where a lot of it's going to happen, whether it's ag tech, whether it's the things that we're talking about. That's the part of the United States where these kind of big projects are going to take place.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I didn't even think about that before you said it, but I mean, definitely from a staffing component, like we're well equipped to kind of you guys to match exactly what you guys need in terms of like chemistry and biology background. So
yeah, well, and then you think about it's not only the big institutions, but HCC, San Jacinto Community College. They're creating programs to help their students get bachelor's degrees and certifications to be able to help with these types of organizations. So we always think about these large organizations like Rice, U of H, Texas, A&M, all that, but even going to the community colleges, we were upstairs talking to somebody who is looking to help entrepreneurs in high school. So we are really creating an ecosystem that goes from high school all the way up and everything in between. And like I was saying earlier, that is the thing that I love the most about Houston. I feel like it's very similar to Kansas City. It's a get things done kind of a city. It's not wave my flag and say, hey, look at me, look at me. It's, hey, I've got things I got to do.
I like that. Man, so I got rare opportunity. You've worked at E&Y for 30 years, finance background, executive director now at Biowell. I know the financial part is another big part of the equation, especially for a startup ecosystem. Like, what have you seen in terms of VC firms or investors paying attention to Houston? Have you seen like more attention being paid attention? 'Cause I know obviously the coast and Boston, those get a lot of attention based on traditional Silicon Valley. And then also you have Boston, you have like all the major, or a lot of the Ivy Leagues are in that area, that Northeast region. So like from a financial institution standpoint, are you seeing more investors paying attention? I know you also mentioned First Bight, so maybe that's a lot of questions to throw at you. Let's start with First Bight. What is First Bight, and kind of what are you guys doing there?
So First Bight is our venture partner, and they've got 6 investments that they've done, and it's small, but it's growing. And that was kind of where Veronica created her view of why we needed Biowell. So I don't know where all of her investors are, but to your point, and kind of what I've seen through my career at EY, right? For the longest time, there weren't many VCs, there weren't very many PEs here in Houston. A lot of the money that was here focused on either real estate or oil and gas. I think you're seeing more and more PEs and VCs coming into the community, not as many as I think we need. I think you're starting to see some of the money that was traditionally just going into oil and real estate moving and shifting a little bit. It needs to shift more, and in my opinion, it needs to shift faster. But we're getting there. But I think a lot of money still is coming, unfortunately, from the West Coast. You mentioned the medical center. I know a lot of the folks go to San Jose or Boston to get to fundraise for their med tech companies, even though we have, I think by an order of magnitude of like 10, the largest medical center on the planet. And I think a lot of people, again, to my point where we don't wave the flag, I don't think a lot of people realize that we have such a huge medical center in the heart of the city.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely a problem that hopefully is addressed in the near future. I don't know if it's from a marketing standpoint or what, but hopefully we get more people on there. We're wrapping up, but last question for you: like, what do you do as an executive director? Like, what does that mean? You shaking hands, kissing babies, getting deals done, or you pounding the pavement, making sure we have enough startups in the accelerator? What's kind of your role?
We're a small team, so my view is it's all hands on deck. So that was when I finished up my career, people used to say, "What do you do?" I said, "Well, I run large accounts, large global accounts." So that means I kiss babies, I shake hands, kiss babies, and herd cats. So I'm doing something very similar now, as I'm trying to keep. As a small team, we're all trying to run as fast as we possibly can to do all the things that need to be done. There's no task that's too small for anybody, and no task that's too big. We're here to do it. So it's just a title. It is what it is.
It makes sense. I mean, you guys are in startup mode as you help startups. So
absolutely
cool. Hey, well, Paul, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I'm gonna interview the rest of your team members that are here. But been a pleasure talking to you, man.
Yeah, appreciate your time.
Likewise. If you're looking for an entry-level job that doesn't require any years of experience, check out noexperiencejob.io. This is a job board that spotlights entry-level jobs that don't require any experience. The great thing about the job board is that you can filter jobs to only find remote or on-site jobs. And then also you can filter jobs based on the city, such as Houston, Detroit, Seattle, wherever you're at in North America. You can also filter jobs based on if it's a full-time position, internship, or a contract role. While you're on the site, make sure you sign up for our weekly newsletter. We send out jobs each and every week that we think are very interesting or that may be appealing to you. My goal for 2024 is to help as many people possible land their dream job. If that sounds interesting, make sure you check out noexperiencejob.io. All right, and so now we're back, part 2 of the Biowell discussion. We have Carlos with us now. And so what's your role at Biowell?
So my role at Biowell is to help our startups that join the accelerator to grow, whether that is finding customers or figuring out their pitch decks. A lot of the help that they need oftentimes is to figure out how to position their companies in front of investors, customers. Also, one thing that makes our startup accelerator different is that we help to find a customer that they can work with. For example, we have companies out of the Midwest that are willing to provide their challenges, and therefore we find a startup that could help to solve that challenge. So at the same time, the startup gains a customer and the corporate gains, a pilot. From them. Yeah.
That's exciting. No, because I know customer discovery is a big part that I think like some startup founders may just kind of like fast forward. They may just jump into like, hey, I had an idea for a startup. Let me go ahead and get started with it. But without an actual like customer, you don't have a business.
Correct.
So I think that's really important. So what are a lot of the founders that come in, do they kind of come from, are they like serial entrepreneurs, or are they kind of more so professionals that wanted to start their own startup, or are they academics that want to start their own startups? Kind of sometimes those necessarily aren't necessarily the best entrepreneurs.
Correct.
Always.
I would say is that latter one that you mentioned, academics, right? Because a lot of our founders are PhDs, right?
Okay.
That found a product maybe they're in school, maybe later on in their careers, right?
Yeah.
That they now figure out how to create a small batch of a piece of material made out of some sort of bio, source, and therefore they're trying to figure out how they can create something with it. So it tends to be scientists that are becoming entrepreneurs, and that's also part of the training that we offer, right? It's like help them to become the best of both worlds, scientists, but also good in the startup, become more founder-like. But they already have that bug in them where obviously they were searching for. They found a problem and now they're trying to create a solution. So it's already ingrained in them. We're just trying to polish it a little bit more.
So I appreciate you breaking down like how you're helping the startups find their customers or partners to kind of start that first pilot. What are most of these companies, are they kind of in industrial partners or like chemistry related partners, and kind of like how do you build those partnership with companies?
Yeah, correct. So for example, we have BASF and Goodyear. These are companies that are, BASF, they have largest, chemical companies. So they have a lot of enzymes, for example, is what they call them, or they have new areas of research that they want to jump into. But, they definitely move fast as a company, but they do want to support startups that are moving into different areas that they may be interested, internally strategic, right? In their strategy, internal strategy. Goodyear, for example, they also are looking for different ways to diversify in terms of their offerings or in terms of their strategy, internal strategy. So, supporting startups, it's a better way for them, or it's a way rather, right? Because they're obviously great companies, but it's a way for them to find new areas that they may want to go into.
Okay.
Yeah.
Exciting. No, I've been paying more attention. I've noticed like a lot of companies that people may not realize it now have venture departments like Chevron Ventures, BP Ventures, so on and so forth. I think I've even seen like maybe a State Farm Ventures, if I'm not incorrect. So it's amazing to see that like across multiple industries, a lot of people are looking to like diversify or like even commercialize in different spaces. So I guess like what are some of like the most different or exciting areas that you may have seen that like people may not be aware of?
It was interesting to visit one of our portfolio companies, at least from the first Bight side in San Diego, where they're creating tennis shoes or flip-flops or the biodegradable surfboard, right? And part of the source is algae, right? Like who would have thought that, if I buy a pair of shoes, and, we're all kind of worried about our shoes. I try to wear my shoes, I leave my tennis shoes for as long as possible before I even try to donate them, right? Because they're still in good shape. But now I can feel a little bit better about where they may end up, right? After even gifting them to somebody, because, in a few months, they'll be back into where they came from, right? Which will be
nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's good. Hey, real quick, going back to the comment you made earlier about like a lot of the companies you're seeing now are kind of coming from like academics and things of that nature.
Sure.
Do you guys also help with like the team formation side of things? Like let's say an academic comes from Rice or U of H or anywhere and they say, hey, I have this idea for a startup.
Yeah.
I got it patented already. I have it like optioned or licensed from the university already. Now I just want to like create the startup, but I don't have a team. Do you guys kind of help out with that part as well, or what?
Yeah, we are. Think of us as the right-hand person for that founder, right? From helping you secure pilots, customers, grow your team, try to help you with your strategy, execute that strategy to find, that person that will have the other skill set that startup might need. And if they don't have it, we try to find it for them while we really want them to be focused on what they do best, right? And so instead of distracting them with like HR related stuff or trying to find, marketing related stuff, we try to find those channels for them to be able to, grow their startup. We do try to prep them earlier, not just when they reach that milestone. That way they can easily and smoothly transition into, that later stage of growth. First Bight likes to lead the rounds. They're these are not incubator, size companies. These are companies that are ready to scale, to bigger, to higher production.
Okay, nice. And then on the first Bight side of things, in terms of venture and investments, what like check sizes do you guys typically make? Are you guys only investing in companies that are in the accelerator program, or if, some other tech startup founder from H-Town Rodeo is here and they say, hey, what's first Bight? How can I, connect with you guys? Do you guys invest in those kind of companies as well?
It tends to be C, Series A and above, right? First Bight likes to, again, lead, to be able to take board seats and help these founders, right? What I like about the approach of First Bight and what I like about Biowell is that we try to get involved, in a positive way as possible. Again, to be that right hand to our founders. We're not just putting money, or we're not just trying to help these companies growing, or like put them through a program, take equity. We don't even take equity when they join the accelerator, right? Because we don't want to hinder that growth. And having that enough of a headspace for these founders is important for them to just, again, focus on what they do best. So, again, we try to guide them and help them as much as possible.
Gotcha. So, Carlos, you are my favorite of the trio of the three amigos here.
I can see that. I can see why.
Because Paul was a big disappointment. We're not going to talk about him. But you as an engineer, I can relate to you. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, what made you get interested in going from like traditional electrical engineering into now like startup accelerator, venture capital space?
It was a transition actually during my university years, pursuing my electrical engineering degree. I really wanted to play with circuits, microchips, eventually get to robotics, maybe space, but I needed to stay in school for like 6 more years and not more to reach those levels. And there's only so much theory I could take. Like the electrical engineer was quite a bit already. So I found an entrepreneurship program, the Wolf Center, where they really kind of the directors share how to be more hands-on, how to launch something. So I guess, I grabbed what I was taught in engineering, and also have a very technical mind. So, and putting order to business, right? Because when you go into business, you can go in so many different directions. But putting that infrastructure or structure is kind of what helped me to get started, being part of that program, and then having a pretty good mentor to guide me on how to, not make a transition or make a change, but rather how to utilize what I have been learning. I guess she also saw, some raw material where I could eventually launch my own little startups and eventually try to launch other startups as well.
Nice. Yeah, no, I think that the technical foundation is very important. And then, now you have the business acumen. So it helps with, your own startup endeavors, but then also helping other startups. So I think it's a great, pathway that you've taken. Man, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I appreciate you coming on.
I appreciate the time, and thank you for having me. Yeah,
no problem.
Team. Yeah.
All right, cool.
I know you hate Paul, but whatever. He's gone. I'll show he's still here.
All right, cool, man. So now in the last edition of the Biowell discussion, we have Mr. Jonathan, or my apologies, Dr. Jonathan Mercado, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. What are you, a real doctor or a fake doctor?
Depends on who you ask. So before I decided to go and get my PhD, I told one of my mentors at University of Texas, where I went to undergrad, no, I don't really want to go and get an MD, or I don't want to be what's called a degree that you pull out of a cereal box. I want to get an MD, and I want to work really hard for it. And so I thought that was what I was going to do, is go and become a medical doctor. Turns out that I really loved being at the bench. I spent 2 years working in a research lab in undergrad, and my boss actually tried to get rid of me by making me read a lot of papers. And I mean, I was way out of my comfort zone, and I just kept showing up, and we spoke about being in janitorial services for First Bight, where I work. And actually, I was the guy cleaning the floors, washing the dishes in my undergrad lab. And I just wouldn't leave. I wanted to be there. I was working 40 hours a week in that lab while also going to school full time. And he said, yeah, John wouldn't leave. And then he gave me some cells to play around with. And then 6 months later, I was on my first paper and decided I really want to get into research. And so I retracted the cereal box doctor comment and went and pursued my PhD at Baylor College of Medicine. And I started in 2015, finished in 2020 during the height of the pandemic. And and now I'm here at First Bight / Biowell.
Okay, nice. So you went through a little bit of indentured servitude to get to where you're at now, but I mean, it's a heck of a journey. I've worked in a research lab, never had to clean floors, clean toilets, or anything like that. But I'm glad you've made it, Jonathan. Like, what's your role at Biowell and First Bight now?
My role originally started at First Bight, so I'm an associate with the fund. Due to my background, I do a lot of the technical diligence. Prior to joining First Bight, I basically did every commercial role you could at a startup, as I was very scrappy, as we talk about Houston being inherently scrappy, founders being scrappy. I worked for a startup right before they IPO'd, did every commercial role you could. Product management, sales training, sales, field application science, business development, sales operations. If there was some commercial aspect to the job or role, I had to do it. And I survived at the company for 2 years through 5 rounds of layoffs. And I saw the writing on the walls, knew that it was about my time to exit the company. And so I started interviewing around Houston, saw First Bight on LinkedIn of all things, and started interviewing, talking with Veronica at the time, and really just fell in love with the opportunity because while growing up as a biologist by training, you learn pretty quickly that, or I guess I learned that a lot of biology is just dedicated or healthcare sciences and med tech and what have you. So with First Bight, it's core to us to focus on other aspect of life science being industrial biology, using biology to make specialty and commodity chemicals instead. And so that's what really got my brain turning was, there's this really new aspect of biology that I could explore. And so I've been here about 9 months now, and I cannot tell you how much fun I've been having, both leveraging my previous background in working all these commercial roles and working with startups during my graduate school career, as well as being able to learn, I guess, help these startups grow and really just help them grow and commercialize their product. And so then I also help with the Biowell just due to the way the Biowell has been set up in such a way that First Bight sort of is on advisory capacity.
Okay.
And so both the managing partner for First Bight, Veronica Wu, supports the Biowell on more of a operator lens, and I support it more on the boots on the ground, more scientific diligence, talking a lot with what equipment might be needed and that sort of thing, so that when we do stand up our facility, hoping, H2 of this year, that we have the right equipment for it to be used right then and there.
Nice. No, I think that's an important role to have. I mean, you look through that bio lens, given your research and startup experience. So I think that's really good that you have that. What's been your favorite startup that you've seen so far, either from the First Bight or the Biowell? They may be the same, but from that perspective, what's been your favorite startup you've seen so far?
I want to say all of them that I've worked with, or that's in our portfolio at First Bight.
Yeah.
That's just the easiest answer. But I have to say they all have great qualities about them. Scientifically speaking, one of the first companies in our portfolio that is not necessarily a fit for Biowell and was kind of is pretty unique to First Bight as we decided to more closely define our investment thesis, is a company called Persephone, in which they basically have a microbiome on a chip platform. And what I think is really interesting about that technology as a whole is, well, firstly, I love the microbiome. I really nerd out about microbiome research. And so being able to produce it on a chip and then do a lot of downstream assays with it can provide you a really nice wealth of data to explore the microbiome in ways that haven't been done before.
And real quick, from a fifth grader definition, how would you describe microbiome?
Gut bacteria.
Okay, perfect. Because I'm from a mechanical engineering background. I like physical things that I can see and touch, and a little bit of software as well. But gut bacteria. Okay.
Yes, and so we also have a company in our portfolio, Vicilis. They produce a chemical called mevalonic acid, That's a platform molecule that can become a lot of different things. From evolonic acid, you can go into skin cream, you can go into isoprene and tire rubbers, you can also process it into sustainable aviation fuel. As has been previously mentioned by others, we have Algenesis that is able to take any sort of unsaturated lipid and create a biodegradable polyurethane or TPU. And so they can make shoes, they can make surfboards, they can make cases for your phone, coating on for rain jackets, tents, etc. Fourth company in the portfolio is a software play for process optimization of scaling the production of your industrial biology products. So starting from your bench scale all the way to the 2,000 liter scale that we plan to build here in Houston. And then fifth company, which was a company I got to diligence myself, the first company I did, is Capra Biosciences based out of Virginia. And what's cool about them is through their own proprietary technology, they are able to produce retinol, and then more or less just through some really unique modifications to the bacteria and how they create the bacteria. Actually, no, firstly, back up. They use food waste and distillery waste to then make retinol that is like a skin cream. They can also make other types of products, including like aerospace, car, and specialty lubricants. And then we have another company that we're looking to close in the coming months called Industrial Microbes, where they can take waste methane or waste ethane gas and produce 100% bio-based acrylic acid. So that's like a drying agent that can be used in paint, hairspray, whatever.
Wow.
So that's our portfolio as well.
Yeah. No, this is exciting stuff. I mean, you guys your portfolio is really exciting, innovative, all that. Real quick, how can people, like, if they want to sign up either for the Biowell Accelerator program or get in touch with, like, maybe you and Veronica and see if you guys can write them a check? What's the best way to get in contact with y'all?
Reach out to us. So you can find us both on LinkedIn, Veronica Wu, Jonathan Mercado at First Bight, as what it relates to the Biowell. We do have a website, and I do believe you can just sign up through the website as a whole. I mainly stick with the First Bight side, so I know a little bit more about how the mechanics work around working with First Bight, but I believe with the Biowell, if I remember correctly, you can, in fact, just sign up through the website as a whole. And then that's how you can request for more information, that sort of thing. Okay.
And then one more question, last question. When you're doing your due diligence, when you're looking at companies that are applying to First Bight, or I know you primarily do First Bight, but Biowell as well, maybe, what are you typically looking for? Is it, industry size? Is it the team? Is it the founder? Is it, like, I know there's a bunch of different variables, but, like, what are you personally, when you're looking at a team or assessing, doing your due diligence, what are you primarily looking for?
I know this is pretty across the board. So there's three things. I want to say three things. Founders are huge because at the stage we invest at First Bight, as well as what we plan to work with at Biowell. We plan to be with these folks for years and years and years. It's like a relationship. And so you want to work with people that you like and you get along with and the vibe's right. And so a lot of folks will just say, why'd you invest in this company? And we can say, oh yeah, the vibe's checked out. And then second is there is billions of dollars coming in from the U.S. government, non-dilutive, by the way, to help these companies stand up and get their products to market, because we recognize, or the U.S. government, and a lot of us has recognized through the pandemic and everything going on in the world right now, is that we need to onshore a lot of manufacturing. Biological manufacturing is one amazing way to do that, because not only are we able to bring it onshore, but we're able to do so in a sustainable manner through leveraging biology as the greatest chemist, if you will. So we like to look at access to government dollars as well. Third, being the market size. We want to see a very large market or a very large market potential. So we are looking at things like drop-in chemicals. So polyurethane, massive market. Isoprene and tire rubber, massive market. Obviously, we know about sustainable aviation fuel, insane market. So we like to look at the market potential as well as sort of how they plan to go to market. So are they starting with the beachhead product where they don't need very much volume of product just to get out there and test drive their technology? So we kind of look at that as well. And then lastly, as it relates to the Biowell, we look at scalability of the technology because there's some, unfortunately, scientific endeavors that do not scale well.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. Hey, I got to ask you this follow-up. Where should people be looking at for these government dollars, non-dilutive? I know NSF, NIH, maybe CHIPS Act, but like what are some sources that you've kind of seen?
Oh gosh, ARPA-E, DOE is over ARPA-E. I mean, these things are coming out on an almost weekly basis.
Wow.
So we are still trying to figure out what the best avenue for looking at these non-dilutive opportunities are. There are websites, of course. There's even teams dedicated to what's called like government business development.
Yep.
And so there's different mechanics that you can explore as it might best fit for your company and what you are working on. The best thing I can say is just if there's a relationship, it's a business development business. So keep someone in mind that you know is working closely with the folks who are deploying all that capital. We are very fortunate in that we happen to know some folks and not confidentially know them or whatever, but they're really nice to us.
Yeah.
And they let us know and we can freely talk with them about sort of what we might need and what the government might be looking for when we go out and apply for these dollars.
Nice. All right. Well, good stuff, man. I've enjoyed the conversation. The doctor closed it out really strong, so I appreciate you coming on. For those of you guys watching, I appreciate you staying tuned. Make sure you like, share, subscribe. Also, make sure you check out Biowell and First Bight, especially if you're an entrepreneur looking to get involved in the sustainability green projects that are out there. So that's it for this episode. I've enjoyed it, and I'll see you later.